The Tillett 2005 article dealing with adolescents and informed consent is one of 3 required articles in the module dealing with ethical issues with vulnerable populations, this case being the vulnerable population of children and families. The Tillett article was written to nurses who work with children as a continuing education guide regarding adolescence and informed consent. Because this was written as a guide for nurses across the country, Tillett frequently states that policies and procedures about dealing with adolescents giving informed consent to treatment varies by states. So the purpose of this article in studying for the exam is not to review each health issue and identify which states allow adolescents to give informed consent in that state. The key in this article is to be familiar with the guidelines from the American Academy of Pediatrics in terms of adolescents and their ability to give informed consent in some reproductive health issues. It is important in healthcare to realize that guidelines from the American Academy of Pediatrics are very informative in helping to know details about providing care for children. The American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines specify that legally only patients with legal empowerment and decisional capacity can give informed consent. That is usually understood to be only dealing with adults. So only adults can give what is understood legally to be informed consent. The guidelines continue that minors and children can give assent, but that parents can give informed permission for treatment of a child. So parents can give informed permission for a child to receive treatment. Minors or children can give assent, but even this assent or agreement to participate in a procedure must be coupled with associated parental consent or informed permission. Additional AAP guidelines clarify the concept of parens patriciae, which is the protective obligation inherent in federal, state, or local governments to require certain behaviors to protect the vulnerable citizens. We mentioned this before during our discussion on the government's role in protecting individuals from communicable diseases. The fact that the government, whether it be a local, state, or federal level, can in essence require certain behaviors in a vulnerable population. The age of consent, the age at which an adolescent may provide informed consent varies by state, and the criteria for emancipation of the child also varies by state. Tillett discusses the concept of the emancipated minor and provides criteria. A child can be considered emancipated, that is, legally able to provide informed consent without any other consideration, when that child is self-supporting and are not living at home, which in and of itself differs in terms of understanding. If the minor is married, if the minor is pregnant or a parent, or is a member of the military. In some states, decisional maturity is but not defined as emancipated, may be given to some who are seeking care for specific conditions. These are children who have been accorded the legal ability to make decisions about their individual health care, but do not meet any of the other criteria for being legally an emancipated minor. It is important that you understand the idea of the emancipated minor and that you are familiar with this criteria. Tillett proceeds to discuss several areas of reproductive health and adolescents' ability to request and access these health care resources as a minor, as an adolescent. The autonomy of adolescents to seek and obtain contraceptive services does vary by state. It is important to realize that the PPACA, the Patient Portability and Affordable Care Act that we talked about in terms of healthcare reform, does not extend privacy to adolescents for obtaining contraception. States and even some geographical areas within that state vary in terms of the adolescent's ability independently to seek contraceptive services. In addition, Tillett emphasizes that the availability of pregnancy termination services to adolescents varies by states. Some states require approval of both biological parents. Some states require notification of the girl's parents, but do not require approval by the parents. Some require written notification. Some states allow for what is known as a judicial bypass, where the adolescent can petition a family court to allow the adolescent to seek a pregnancy termination without notifying the parent or the father of the child. And it's important to realize that states vary in their legislation, and that it is critical when dealing with an adolescent client that respect for her autonomy and consideration for her greatest beneficence are important, but that individual autonomy and her individual preference may not be possible to respect based upon state laws. According to Tillett, currently all states respect the adolescent's autonomy and ability to give informed consent for requested treatment of a sexually transmitted disease. Some states do require notification of parents by the doctor or clinic, and a few states require parental notification of HIV status, but states differ in terms of requirements and the ability of the adolescent to independently seek treatment. The adolescent's legal right to seek and receive prenatal care individually without parental notification varies by states. Generally, clinics and physicians prefer to offer prenatal care based upon the request by the adolescent, even without parental notification. Some states do require parental notification, but will generally continue to treat the adolescent based upon the adolescent's individual request. Even if states do allow adolescents to request and to receive health care based on their informed consent, and even if the clinic is not required to notify parents of the adolescent's request for care, the confidentiality of the adolescent's care is not guaranteed. In virtually all states, parents have the right to review and have access to medical information and records of their children. In some states, the adolescent is asked to give permission to make records available to parents, but even if the adolescent refuses, state law will generally overrule and allow the parents to review the adolescent's records. The Health Information Regulating Privacy for Medical Records, HIPAA privacy guidelines do not extend to the records of adolescents. They are not recognized or protected as independent adults. It is important for the provider to realize that caring for adolescents allows for conscientious objector status for the provider. That is, the provider is not required to provide care to an adolescent without permission or presence of the parents. That is the right of the provider to say, I will not offer care to the adolescent unless the parent is notified of this. I have included on this slide information about the Guttmacher Institute. The Guttmacher Institute is a not-for-profit independent organization designed to help improve the reproductive health of all groups. And I've included their web link here so that you can be familiar with another important resource to help you understand the ethical dilemmas in dealing with children and adolescents. In a summarization, Tillett discusses nursing responsibilities to support adolescents in receiving care. And those responsibilities include educating the adolescent and the family about the health condition or the resource available. Frequently, an important role is to mediate among all involved parties to ensure that all parties are communicating and are actively involved in the decision making. And the final role is to advocate for the adolescent, to ensure that the adolescent receives the care that is needed in a way that is respectful of the adolescent as an individual. For exam purposes, it will be important that you understand the concept of emancipation and the emancipated adolescent. How does emancipation affect adolescents' assent and informed consent? And what are the adolescents' rights in terms of receiving reproductive services as discussed in general by Tillett? This completes the video discussing the Tillett article dealing with adolescents and informed consent.